Good evening, viewers. You're watching Mirror Prime. I'm Ashish Pareek. Nearly 40 years after the world's worst industrial disaster, the toxic shadow of the Bhopal Gas Tragedy continues to linger. The lethal gas leak in 1984 killed thousands of people. It left generations scarred and turned the Union Carbide factory into a graveyard of hazardous waste. 337 tons of hazardous waste untouched for several decades. Governments changed, court battles continued to rage on, offers to ship the waste abroad were also rejected, and state after state continued to refuse this waste. Now, in 2025, the toxic burden of Bhopal has been passed on, not to those responsible but to the people of Pitampur in Madhya Pradesh. A trial incineration of 10 tons of this hazardous waste has now begun at the Pitampur treatment, storage and disposal facility. This facility at Pitampur was chosen because of its compliance with environmental safety norms. It has been tasked with burning what nobody else in India wanted. The government is now assuring people that the emissions are within limits, the process is entirely scientifically sound and safety measures are also in place. But is this the reality? Residents of Pitampur are protesting. Experts are warning of carcinogenic fallout, and the ghost of Bhopal continues to loom large over a new town now. Here's a ground report.
यूनियन कार्बाइड का जहरीला कचरा जलाने की प्रक्रिया शुरू हो चुकी है। मेरे पीछे तस्वीरें आप देख रहे हैं पीतमपुर की राम की इन्वायरमेंटल फैक्ट्री है, जहां पर ये चिमनी का धुआं आपको नजर आ रहा होगा। जो कचरा है उसको जलाने की प्रक्रिया अब शुरू हो चुकी है। दरअसल ये 10 टन कचरा है जो सैंपल के तौर पर प्राथमिक रूप से जलाया जा रहा है। इसके बाद इसकी रिपोर्ट जो है हाईकोर्ट में सबमिट की जाएगी और उसके बाद बाकी कचरे का निस्तारण होगा। प्रशासनिक अधिकारी भी अंदर मौजूद है। कचरा जलाने की पूरी प्रक्रिया की जा रही है। दरअसल 1 जनवरी को इस कचरे को शिफ्ट किया गया था पीतमपुर, और पीतमपुर में इस कचरे के आने के बाद यहाँ हंगामा शुरू हो गया था। यहाँ के स्थानीय लोगों ने विरोध किया था। उसके बाद याचिकाकर्ता हाईकोर्ट गए, सुप्रीम कोर्ट गए और पूरी कानूनी प्रक्रिया के बाद, प्रावधान होने के बाद यहाँ पर कचरे को जलाया गया है। देखिए, प्रशासनिक अधिकारी अब अंदर से बाहर निकल रहे हैं और जो आधिकारिक जानकारी है वो उनके द्वारा की जाएगी। जो प्रक्रिया है वो अगले 72 घंटे तक चलेगी और इस पूरी प्रक्रिया के बाद जो कचरा है उसको आधिकारिक रूप से जलाया जाएगा। जो कमिश्नर है दीपक सिंह जी, वो इस समय मौजूद है और वो औपचारिक जानकारी देंगे।
यूनियन कार्बाइड भोपाल का जो कचरा पीथमपुर में लाया गया था निस्तारण के लिए, उसकी प्रक्रिया प्रारंभ हो चुकी है। जैसा कि मैंने पहले बताया था कि 5 टैंकर से मटेरियल निकाल के उनकी मिक्सिंग करके जो पूरी प्रक्रिया है, जिसमें कि सेंट्रल पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड और स्टेट पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड के अधिकारी और साइंटिस्ट भी उपस्थित हैं। उनकी मौजूदगी में, उनके सुपरविजन में कचरा जलाने का काम शुरू हो गया है। इसकी सतत मॉनिटरिंग की जा रही है और ऐसी व्यवस्था भी की गई है कि इसके जो गैसेस निकल रही हैं उसके सारे जो मापदंड हैं वो ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म में भी पब्लिक डोमेन में उपलब्ध हैं। कोई भी व्यक्ति उसको देख सकता है और पूरी प्रक्रिया जो अभी शुरू की गई है उसमें किसी भी प्रकार की कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। पूरा सेफ है। अब अभी प्रक्रिया शुरू हुई है और इसके बारे में आगे हम आप लोगों को अपडेट देते रहेंगे। लगभग 3 दिन का समय इसमें लगेगा। जो फर्स्ट ट्रायल हम लोग 10 मेट्रिक टन का करने वाले।
कितनी उम्मीद है कि जल्द से जल्द खत्म हो जाएगी? कितना समय लगेगा?
देखिए, जो 10 टन ट्रायल के लिए जलाया जा रहा है उसमें संभावित 72 घंटे का समय लगने की उम्मीद है और उसके बाद जो आगे के 10 टन हैं उसमें भी इसी प्रकार का टाइम लिमिट लगेगा। बट जो पूरी प्रक्रिया है वो एक बार फीड रेट की स्पीड, आइडियल स्पीड डिसाइड हो जाएगी, फिर ये तय होगा कि किस स्पीड में जलाना है। उसके आधार पर डिसाइड होगा कि कितना टोटल टाइम लगेगा।
1 जनवरी को यहाँ पर कचरा लाया गया था, बहुत कियोस हुआ था। उसके बाद चैलेंजेस आए इस बार भी आपको किसी तरह के?
नहीं, अभी जो भी चैलेंजेस हैं, क्योंकि अभी ये पूरी साइंटिफिक प्रक्रिया से हो रहा है तो इसका तो एसओपी पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड के वैज्ञानिक हमारे पूरा काम देख रहे हैं। जिला प्रशासन के रूप में हमारे सामने जो चैलेंज था वो यहीं तक सीमित था कि जनता तक सही संवाद हो, जनता को सही जानकारी मिले, पूरी पारदर्शिता के साथ काम हो। मैं समझता हूँ कि पीतमपुर की पूरी जनता को के प्रति हम अपना धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करना चाहेंगे कि उन्होंने हमें सुना, प्रशासन की बात को सुना।
Right. There you heard it. This is, of course, the official stalking. In fact, this issue has now become a political flashpoint as well. Take a look.
जीतू पटवारी जी थोड़ी अपना जानकारी बढ़ा लें, थोड़ा अध्ययन कर लें, रात दिन सोशल मीडिया पे रील चलाने से अच्छा है थोड़ी जानकारी भी जुटा लें। हाई कोर्ट का स्पष्ट आदेश है 27 फरवरी से 10 मार्च तक 3 चरणों में कचरा जलाना है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इस पे रोक से इनकार कर दिया है। बेहतर हो पहले आप आदेश का अध्ययन कर लें, थोड़े समाचार पत्रों का अध्ययन कर लें, फिर इस तरह का झूठ परोसने का काम करें। और आप कह रहे हैं कि राम की कंपनी के आसपास के 10 किलोमीटर में भूजल में कैंसर के तत्व मौजूद हैं, तो कौन सी आपने जांच करा ली और कौन से उसके प्रमाण सार्वजनिक करो। झूठ परोसने का काम करें, जनता को भड़काने और गुमराह करने का काम करें। आप पे तो भड़काने और गुमराह करने की धाराओं में केस दर्ज होना चाहिए। आपके पापों का परिणाम ही है जो यूनियन कार्बाइड का कचरा है, जिसको उस पाप को हम धोने का काम कर रहे हैं।
सरकारी विशेषज्ञों का ये कहना है कि सरकारी कचरा नहीं। मैं चुनौती देता हूँ मुख्यमंत्री, आप किसी एजेंसी को भेज के वहाँ के जल स्तर को रामकी के आसपास 10 किलोमीटर के मानकों में चेक कर लें। अगर नहीं निकला तो मैं सार्वजनिक माफी मांगूँ, और अगर निकला तो फिर सरकार ने मैसेज दिया कि हमें आप वोट देते हो, हम आपको जहर देते हैं, कैंसर देते हैं। अपने स्वार्थों के लिए, व्यक्तिगत स्वार्थों के लिए सरकार, उसके मंत्री, उसके मुख्यमंत्री, उसके नुमाइंदे उस जमीन पर किसी न किसी प्रकार का लाभ लेने के लिए कचरा पहुँचाए। कोर्ट ने नहीं कहा कि कचरा जला, कोर्ट ने कहा ये सरकार के विवेक पे है कि सरकार क्या करे। तो सरकार ने कहा हम जहर देंगे, भावी पीढ़ी को कैंसर मिलेगा, जहर मिलेगा, और ये सोते रहेंगे, चुप रहेंगे। इंदौर की जनता देख रही है, समझ रही है।
All right, viewers. If the people of Bhopal were victims of a corporate neglect, are the people of Pitampur now victims of official convenience? Is Pitampur's future being rewritten by a disaster from the past? Is Pitampur being forced to accept an uncertain future? These are big questions that everyone today in the nation is asking. Joining us right now, Dr. Gobardhan Das, Director IISER Bhopal, Professor Dr. Sudhir Kumar, Senior Consultant, Apollo Hospitals, Jubilee Hills, Hyderabad, and Vimlendu Jha, who's an environmentalist. Dr. Das, I'll start with you now. You've just seen the entire report. My colleague got it from on ground, hand to heart. Do you think everything that the government is saying, this entire process is 100% safe?
Good evening to you all. I have 2 ways to respond. Number one, if you look at the society aspect, as I see, the government is very responsible, they are sensitive, and they have taken all precautions. And in fact, they have taken the consulted NERI and the consulted NGRI, as well as Central Pollution Control Board. So that's, I think, government have done, taken right decision, and actually the High Court also given that, given the go ahead, and Supreme Court also not. So therefore, I think there is no problem with the society aspect. Second way, I'll talk about the science part. As you know, this is, if we're talking about the toxic waste, what kind of toxic waste? If you're talking about methyl isocyanate, if it reacts with the water, it simply produces 1,3-dimethyl-urea plus carbon dioxide. I think 1,3-dimethyl-urea is not toxic. So therefore, I think when you are talking about the, some people are saying toxic waste, they have to find out what kind of toxic waste. Number 3, they are talking about the water, the pollution water. Actually, the Pitampur side the water itself because of industrial waste that, little bit of may not be that good quality, but that doesn't mean this is the waste actually doing that water pollution. So I have no doubt the government has taken the right decision. They have taken advice from the various organizations, and they have. I completely support it.
All right, Dr. Das. That's your point of view there. Vimlendu Jha, I want you to come in on that. You just heard what Mr. Das said. Now, yes, scientifically, if he's saying it, it sounds reasonable. But at the end of the day, one of the stakeholders here that are feeling betrayed are the citizens of Pitampur. We just heard a lot of people also speak on the ground there. They are not convinced. There are various NGOs, various residents complaining. Now, if I was a resident of Pitampur today, if someone gave me a long list of data, details, scientific studies and told me that, well, you know what, this is safe, but we are going to do it in your village. Nowhere else in India, multiple states have refused to accept this waste, but for some reason, your village is the perfect place to do it. Will I not feel like a guinea pig?
Absolutely. So you know what? Everyone wants a landfill, but they don't want a landfill in their backyard. Very rich of Mr. Das, Dr. Das, who's of course
Correct.
a scientist, perhaps to really say that methyl isocyanide and whatever that the remains are not toxic because it makes urea. As in, perhaps he needs to understand that there was a Bhopal gas tragedy, which has been one of the worst industrial tragedies or accidents that we actually have in the world history in that sense. And we've all seen the number of people who actually died that night
Correct.
and the number of people or thousands of people who've actually been affected for generations in terms of different kinds of disorders. So therefore, to say that methyl isocyanide is not toxic or methyl isocyanide waste is not toxic is something I do not know where Dr. Das is actually getting this data from. Right now, we need to understand one very, very important thing. Any form of incineration of waste, and this is science that again I'm talking about, and written about it. If you just type environmental impact of incineration is not the best thing. What you do is that you make waste disappear at high temperature. Indeed, controlled incineration can be fine to really in terms of waste disposal, but given the history that we actually have in India right now, as in in Delhi itself, waste to energy plants that we actually have, which is not even an industrial waste, which is not even a methyl isocyanide waste that I'm talking about. I'm only referring to municipal waste. And there was a New York Times report, a detailed study, an examination of what happens when you actually incinerate waste. And then there's one of the bodies have actually withdrawn from one of the waste to energy plants that actually was proposed, another one that was proposed for Delhi. So incineration, yes, but in Indian standard, given the nature of waste is extremely important to understand how effective can incineration be. The concerns that the locals have actually raised, and rightly as you put forth, that the samples that were done, the trial runs that were done, there were reservations, no doubt. As in, just because the tragedy happened in Bhopal,
Absolutely.
that doesn't mean for decades together, residents of Bhopal have been asking for safe disposal. But safe disposal of one man's waste or one city's waste can't be somebody else's toxic in their backyard. And given the track record that we actually have, people
Absolutely.
are skeptical, and one needs to look at it. And that's why some of the scientists are actually saying that perhaps bioremediation could have been better, or the standards that we're talking about, we need to really prove it.
Exactly.
At the end of the day,
Mr. Vimlendu Jha, that's exactly why a lot of people today are saying that are the people of Pitampur now being forced, in fact, into an uncertain future. Dr. Sudhir Kumar, I want to come to you on this now. I was going through the mechanism that is being followed to do this entire thing, and apparently the remaining ash after the incineration will be securely buried in a specialized landfill. Now, I don't know how specialized this landfill is, because what's happened in Bhopal is that from 2014 to 2018, toxic waste has, in fact, this toxic waste has polluted groundwater in 42 settlements around the Union Carbide factory. In fact, over the last 5 years alone, this has further spread to 19 to 29 other settlements. So this is not just another toxic waste that we can tell the people of Pitampur to not worry about. The reality is, I'll ask my team to play it out. Pitampur is just around, I believe, 30 kilometers from Indore. There's a river also nearby. This is a serious situation. We can't just tell the people of Pitampur that, listen, our authorities are telling us that it's safe, so even you are supposed to believe it is safe. Dr. Sudhir Kumar, is this the right way to go about it?
Thank you for inviting me on this very important topic for discussion. So definitely, we heard Dr. Das, and he assured us that it is totally safe. And we also have the report of all the authorities, which also have deemed the process safe. But, one thing on the paper and then one thing in reality, sometimes they may not be, match. And that is what the apprehension is. So people of Bhopal and surroundings, they have already suffered. We know the number of people who died and the effect had on subsequent generations also. So the apprehension among the public is real. And then if all the things what are discussed on the paper, if it goes smoothly and then there is no problem, we all will be happy. But we know that if the landfill and if there is breakage in that, it can percolate to the soil. Soil can get polluted, and then it can also percolate and cause water pollution. Of course, they are filtering the toxic waste and then releasing only the clean air. But we saw in your video also that there is something whitish coming out. So we still have to wait for the report what is contained in those toxic fumes, which look toxic actually on the visual, on the naked eye. So we have to, we have to 100% sure. As the office also said that there will be complete transparency, and then we'll have to study, after burning this 10 metric tons, whether any kind of pollutants are still there in the soil, water, or air or not. And if there is any even small element of doubt, I don't think we should continue, because this pollution can have devastating effects. If you look at the medical aspects, it can affect the skin, kidneys, lungs, and also it can affect the nervous system, can cause cancer. So pollution is a major issue, and as already Dr. Das also said, there is industrial pollution. So we cannot just shrug it off saying already there is industrial pollution, so let us pollute some more, and then what will happen? So we have to tackle and we have to reduce
Dr.
the pollution.
Kumar, you made a very interesting point. You spoke about transparency. I think one of the issues that people today have is that all this data that's coming out, that it is safe, there's nothing to worry about. All of this data is by authorities, by people who work for the government, a government that has struggled to find a proper landfill for so many years. It is desperate now because of the High Court decision to ensure that this waste is somehow treated. Dr. Das, you made a very interesting point, and you're of course the expert on the panel here. When you say that this is not a toxic waste that we should really be concerned about, people are going to ask questions. People are going to ask, if this is not something we should be concerned about, why did the states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh even refuse to let this toxic waste enter their border? If this is not so toxic, then what's the concern from across the nation? Why should people of Pitampur accept something that multiple states have denied?
No, so see what if some one state's waste, why some other state will take? In one thing. Number two. So do you think?
But
this
if
is,
it's Bhopal's waste, Dr. Das, sorry to interrupt. By that logic, if this is Bhopal's waste, why should people of Pitampur take it?
No, so see, this is government has taken, the Madhya Pradesh government has taken all the precautions. In fact, so what you are trying to, doubt the credentials of NERI and the NGRI, CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, and the NGRI and NERI. So basically, they are the authorities, they are the research organization. They have given actually go ahead, and that is what the High Court also agreed to give the permission to put the waste there. So therefore, I think no matter what you do, some people always find a way to agitate, and some people are always kind of do something political, take the political turn. I think it's better not to take it. This is a political thing. Rather, one has to be integrated in the society, and one has to actually approve. One has to accommodate themselves. The Pitampur is a place where the probably industrial waste being disposed, and that is the perfect place for disposing such kind of waste. So it's not only this waste, other waste also being disposed there. So therefore, I think government is actually, I'm very sure government is very sensitive. They are responsible. They have taken all the precautions, and they have taken the advice from the various organizations. I don't have any doubt about it. So why do I, being a person, simply keep on doubting, and then government credential? This has to be put somewhere. This waste is, of course, where this tragedy happened. Of course, that's not the place to keep on leaving the things there. Probably they have to take it somewhere else. So that is what government is doing.
Absolutely, Dr. Das. I understand the point that you're making. It's the government data, but the reality is it's my job to ask questions. It's my job not to take the government data that they offer. It's my job to ask questions, to analyze, to critique everything that happens, to ensure that we get to the reality of things. This is the same government that said that there were absolutely no deaths because of oxygen during COVID. So my job is not to accept the data as it comes. My job is to understand if that's the truth and ensure that the concerns of the people of Pitampur, because this is a genuine concern, they are genuinely concerned whether this is actually right for them. Vimlendu Jha, now again, let's assume that all the data that's given by the government all the data that's given by the government is right. There's absolutely no concern when it comes to this. Even then, people of Pitampur in fact, are concerned. How should the government go about solving their concerns or addressing the concerns? Because this is not just any waste that we're talking about. The ramifications are massive. This could impact generations if something goes wrong. So these are valid concerns. We can't just dismiss them saying that, oh, you guys don't know what science is. You don't know what scientific methods we use. So you don't ask us questions, because at the end of the day, this activity is being done on their land. Their permission is of utmost importance.
Absolutely. And Ashish, and therefore, I think, one basic request that I have from Dr. Das, who actually is in Bhopal and runs an institute in Bhopal, and therefore for him to really so compulsively give clearance to the government when the government of India and government of respective states have had a terrible track record when it comes to environmental governance and waste management. And here for him to really cheer for the government unconditionally for a waste that is one of the worst forms of waste, toxic waste that we actually have, and therefore to say that people raising concern, people like you in the media or me in this from civil society or the local residents who eventually will be affected by this, and to say that all of this is politics and this is all just fear mongering is slightly unfair, because there is some reality, there's truth, as I said, in terms of environmental governance. Right now, I think one of the things that the government has to do, and what you actually said, the reason why government is desperate and is fast moving on this is not because its own intent to take care of this waste. It's the High Court's order primarily. And that's why they have to abide by the order.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason why. So it's not as if, otherwise, imagine our governments of our days are not able to take care of municipal waste. As in Delhi, we have mountains of garbage everywhere, and that has been contaminating our land, water, and soil. As in groundwater table, because of municipal waste, landfills that we're talking about, so-called sanitary landfills, are causing such kind of a disaster. Imagine what's the kind of damage that perhaps this would be. I would only expect and hope so that yes, given the the risk involved in this particular waste that we're talking about, and the limelight that it has, and the public pressure and courts observation.
Right, Mr. Jha, just 30 seconds left on the broadcast. One final word from Dr. Sudhir Kumar. Dr. Sudhir, one final word from you. Closing remarks on this, please.
Definitely, we have to be serious about all forms of pollution, because in the Lancet report also it was shown that air pollution is indeed the biggest risk factor for stroke. And we have cancer incidence increasing again. Another Lancet report showed that 3 out of 5 people who are diagnosed to have cancer, they do not survive in India. So we cannot brush aside these sources of pollution, potential sources of pollution. So this case may be one incident, but this case can be taken as example so that we take care of all forms of pollution across the country, because most of the Indian cities are polluted, and we know the sources. So the government and all the agencies involved should take care of the pollution, try to minimize it, so that the public health can improve.
So if I can
Absolutely.
get that
Dr.
30
Sudhir
seconds.
Kumar, Dr. Gobardhan Das and Vimlendu Jha. Right. Go ahead. 30 seconds, please.
Okay, so I have a question for Mr. Jha. He keeps on saying the toxic waste. What is toxic waste? Do you have any scientific data? And also, why you are doubting the credentials of NERI and NGRI and CPVP? So if you are a scientist, if you believe science, then give us the data. What kind of toxic material is there?
Okay. So if
Vimlendu Jha, 30 seconds, please respond. Just 30 seconds, please.
Okay, very, very clearly. We also know, as if I had to talk about CPCB, as much as we respect that there is a body called CPCB that we have in the country, there's 50% vacancy in CPCB. We also know the credentials and if environmental regulation and monitoring was so good, India would not be one of the most polluted countries. Our surface waters would not have been contaminated.
Absolutely, Vimlendu Jha.
So just to really say,
I'm sorry, just
in terms of
I need to wrap. My producers are asking me to wrap. But again, this is a question that needs to be asked. Dr. Das is definitely giving the clearance to the government here. But Vimlendu Jha, our job is to ask questions. We will continue to ask questions. And Dr. Sudhir Kumar, appreciate joining us on the broadcast. All right, viewers, on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of the broadcast. Lots more lined up on the other side. Stay tuned.